Alrighty, I've got a kettle going in the background, never mind that. Some time ago, you'll remember I was building a thermal mass heater, and I was uploading videos on it, and then this video sort of stopped. There was never really any explanation. Going to do a bit of a talk about it. I'm in the process of fixing it up. It was basically a design failure that occurred with all this stuff. I don't even know how far I went with videos showing the build of it. I think it was a fair way. What you can see here is the left side beside the wall there. That's on that other side of the bed that all this setup exists. And the staining you can see there is actually creosote that's come right through into the bedroom and was then sort of stinking the bedroom out. I experimented with all of this to see how it would work on some nights that were kind of cold, but I wanted to see how it would happen. So I just rugged up fairly well and lit it all up, only to find that it was, we had some issues, some bloody big issues. And I couldn't understand a lot of things at first. At first I could smell there was some kind of smell that was coming through. And I assumed that those pavers that I'd used, somebody had, you know, because they'd come out of the state capital, out of the CBD as such, that somebody might have ended up with motor oil that had soaked into one of them. And the heat of this wood heater was causing that oil to rise to the surface and come out and stink the place out. But in fact, it was actually creosote. So one of the things, if you look into anybody who's got thermal mass heaters, the preferred stone of choice is soapstone. Although there's other kinds that people use. There'll be a lot using slate and other bits and pieces. And, you know, some of them just straight out brick. And, oh wow, did we find a few things out. Becomes very apparent that normal mortar is not resistant to fire temperatures. I also had some other disappointments involving thermal expansion or something along those lines, where a lot of the fire brick that I made up using perlite and vermiculite decided that it was not going to play ball, and some of that stayed fine that wasn't under super large heat, and some of it decided to crack, because that was obviously the easier path for it to do. It led to things being a fair old mess. Yeah, that plus this stinking creosote coming into the bedroom, plus, you know, yeah, there was a number of, we had some flaws, and it took me a while to understand all of them in depth. And so in this video, I'm basically going to go through said flaws. So this here is basically how it works. And what you can see there on the left side is basically, yeah, the bedroom wall side there. You can see obviously a big cylinder going in there. That was the old car propane tank. And what I then had, you'll see there's like a little circle in the end there. That was where my flue come up. But in order to retain heat, I wanted to get as much as I could into the stone, obviously. Now, your main outline around this whole thing is basically where the stone was placed. That's your thing that your cylinder's sitting inside of. That was the stone placement. In terms of even transfer of heat, you can probably see a problem that's developing here. The back side, in this case the top side, the northern side there, which technically is east in real life, but anyway, you can see that back end there where you got your little circle there, and then I've got sort of those dots inside that pipe. Well, those dots inside the pipe is basically where the flue went, and you can see then it sort of goes outside and goes through the actual steel flue. The trouble is all that back part, there was so much stone there, or basically most of it was brick, that it just wasn't going to heat up. And it just didn't. It never got above lukewarm the whole time. Whereas the lower side that you can see there, there wasn't much stone. That side could be so hot you could barely keep your hand on it. And those pavers were that hot, it was incredible. Like, you know, you really couldn't hold your hand on there for any more than a few seconds, while the other end was lukewarm. It was barely even above cold sort of thing. It was just starting to raise its temperature. And this is one of the problems that's occurred. In the modification, I've actually smashed off a fair bit of that. Not all of it, but a good heap of it. So, yeah, I probably should have smashed off more, but let me tell you, if I ever had any problems thinking that my brickwork was not good brickwork, holy bloody hell, it has been an absolute slow, grinding slam to get all that out by brick chisel. It has taken so long with so much effort while I'm sitting there perched up on a couple of rocks in between that and the blooming bathroom wall, you know, wearing sunglasses and a hat so I don't get stabbed by the blooming roof sheet that's covering the wood heater. While kneeling down in there trying to hammer it. God, it's been a bloody shit of a job. I actually think I sort of hurt my foot out of it, to be honest. Yeah. Long and short of it, where you can see there inside all the stone, that bit I was saying, the pipe with the little dots, that was all a pathway made out of bricks. So you'd have some bricks running lengthways and some bricks running sideways to create a little pathway. And that would go up there, and as you can see, there's a part there where it basically reaches the left side, and there's a little funny-looking sort of a brick thing I made up that actually wasn't affected by the heat and has actually retained its original shape and everything, and I've still got that piece. And then there's like a block of wood that was in front of that, so that I could cut out that block of wood, take away that little piece, and clean out the flue effectively out of all the creosote. Well, that really never become an issue. I shall show you some of those bricks that were in there. And yeah, as you can see, it sort of moves through the main unit, which was all brick, and then I had to change over to go to a steel flue which went out sideways a bit and then went vertical. And that was all steel, and that was all completely exposed outside the rest of the cover. And that was where the real issues really started. Because a lot of these people, as I was saying, when you read up on this stuff, a lot of people have soapstone ones, and there's like an association of this for America. And one of their recommendations is that you have dry wood and your wood is stored inside. And that was another problem that, in conjunction with the steel flue, basically caused the creosote issue. So I'll show you anyway those bricks that were inside that part there. So that they sort of went up on an angle and then they went across like that, with the idea that, you know, they're going to sort of, their heat is going to go into the stones and keep the bricks, basically heat them up more, because you're taking the heat out of your smoke. But of course I had that little bit on the left side so I could actually, you know, clean it out properly. But out of creosote, which didn't turn out to be an issue, but there was a lot of creosote gained, and there was a lot of creosote that, yeah, wasn't gained. Oh, I'll explain that in a second. So these are basically some of the bricks that come out. These are the ones laying sideways in for the most part there. And you can see I've got the mortar on the left and the right of the bricks there. Yeah, they had no issues gaining creosote. But see, I never used dry inside wood, did I? And that's the other thing that these thermal mass heater people say. You need to have the thermal mass heater inside. You need to use dry wood that's been very dried out. And you need that dry wood to also be kept inside, not left outside and covered in snow in the case of the recommendations I was, watching in these American videos from people in the American Association of Thermal Mass Heaters. And I'll explain now what basically happened. So basically, in the upper right-hand corner there, or however it looks on your screen, that flue went outside because I had a lot of trouble with having the flue too short initially, and it was sort of that vent that I've got in the bedroom wall that, allows me to sort of suck air in through from the, another part of the, it's an old door that's no longer used, and I suck in cool air through there once the sun goes down, or the sun's going down and the air's cooling outside, but the house is still hot. I have a fan that'll suck air through this vent in the door, and it's a fairly big vent. It's like about bloody 2 foot by 2 foot. And it blows it back through one that's right at ceiling height. And that one at ceiling height is on that same wall that the wood heater's mounted on, except it's at ceiling height. The trouble is I didn't have a flue that was big enough, and the bloody smoke was coming back in through that vent. And he closed the vent, and I'm pretty certain it was still trying to come back in through, and I could just smell it too much. And it might have been coming in through the actual, sort of gaps around the stone wall. But it was coming through and I could smell it. So I needed to really get a bit of height in this flue. So I changed the flue to go outside. It actually was attached to the bathroom roof, which if you've seen enough videos of my house, that bathroom roof is the tallest part of the roof in the entire house. It's exceedingly high. Yeah, it actually went up another 1.5 feet taller than that. So the smoke was up so high that then stopped me smelling any smoke in the bedroom. But see, here's the kicker. All of that is steel. The air drawn in from this wood heater is outside cold, moist, and sometimes even foggy air. The wood is just sitting out on the ground there next to it that's been rained on for weeks now. And you're going up through a steel pipe. And there's a lot of creosote. Creosote will naturally settle on cold steel. And it looks, in the case of those bricks, that it was also settling on cold bricks. It basically will settle on any cold surface. Except, because we had such an extremely high vertical run on that flue, we were also condensing all the steam, all the moisture in the air inside that flue. And that was evidenced by the fact that the little 45-degree bend you could see there had a lot of water literally dripping out of that joint. I mean, she was fairly dripping out. But the trouble was, as that water was forming, it was actually dissolving some of the creosote. And because you've got to have like a continuous rise in your flue to keep your warm smoke rising, it was also a perfect drop and angle for this water inside the flue to flow back down the flue. Some of it would drop out at the 45-degree angle you could see there, but the rest of it would keep going down that pipe, and it'd enter into the brickwork and continue to flow through the brickwork where it come to that little sharp 90-degree angle inside the brickwork, near where it meets that wall that's on the left side there that's in my bedroom, and ultimately it would flow through the cracks in between the bricks and the pavers that are probably very, very small cracks. It might only be a mil thick, and then seep out through the wall into the bedroom, and then you got creosote that's starting to stink the bedroom out. It bloody stinks, that shit. It's like some sort of plastic, not fiberglass setting, but a similar sort of a plasticky smell that's far worse, and you're trying to sleep through that, you know. And ultimately, yeah, you can't sleep through that kind of stuff forever. And I thought, it's a bit of oil, it'll burn off with a bit of heat. But see, it was on the left side there, which is what you can see is the back of the wood heater, and she was seeping through from the warm, you know, smokestack, flue pipe, whatever you want to call it. And then, of course, because it was in such a large amount of rock there, bricks there, it had maintained its liquidity to get through all the cracks. And then it sort of wasn't, you know, it was being heated only slightly, but basically it had seeped right through into the bedroom, and it was stinking the bedroom out. And I thought it was just oil and with enough heat it'd burn off, but then that side wasn't getting any more than lukewarm. So it wasn't going to burn off even if it was oil, but it wasn't oil. So here I am thinking it's a bit of engine oil that's dripped onto this paver in its previous life, to find that no, it's just creosote. And it ain't just going to burn off, it's just going to keep coming down that flue as the moisture condenses in that flue, dissolves the creosote, flows back down through the same holes it's been through, and it's just, it's not good. Basically, I abandoned it. It just wasn't heating up. We had a lot of strange incidents there where it would heat up straight away, and then, you know, it'd be nicely, slightly warm later on. But that's only not the end with all the brick where you can see the flue going up. That's the other end would do that. And it was still like nicely sort of just lukewarm by morning, and sort of, you know, that was all right if all of it had played out like that. But there are plenty of times there where also, due to the size of the flue and, I don't know, the fire just didn't want to play ball, you'd go to sleep, it was cold, you'd hear it crackling, but it wouldn't really fire up, and it'd almost go out. And you'd wake up at midnight and it was freezing cold. And then sometime, which always seems to happen even with me big heater, in the early hours of the morning, you know, 5 a.m. or whatever, sometimes 3 a.m, the bloody thing would fire up, and you'd wake up, you'd go to sleep cold, you'd be cold right through midnight, you wake up cold, you'd go to sleep again at midnight, still cold, to wake up at blasted 7 a.m, and the thing was hot enough to burn your hands. And it's like, well, that's great, I spent the whole night freezing cold, now I've got to get up and go to work, it's fucking burning hot. Bloody bullshit. There just wasn't any real consistency. So where the old, you can see the little circle there where the flue comes out, the new flue's just going to go straight out there to keep consistency in burning by having a better flow. I'm not guaranteed that this thing's going to necessarily play ball and work. I hope it is this time. I hope that by changing the point of the flue, the fire will be more reliable and stay lit and warm up and burn when I initially light it until it's run out of wood and then stop. Instead of barely crackling along and then somehow getting a second burst at 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. and spending the whole night cold to wake up to these bricks being burning hot, because, yeah, that's just not the way I want it to work. It was just too inconsistent with its, you know, with its burning, and yeah, it wasn't playing ball. I will show you in future what I'm intending to do, because this video is dragging on a bit. And of course, there's probably going to be a couple of short videos of the rebuild of the new one, which is currently underway, which I've taken absolutely no videos at all of, and I probably should have taken more photos, but sometimes I want to get on with things as opposed to make nice photos. So anyway, we'll leave it about there because this is dragging on. I'll show you what it has been and what it's going to be. Not much has changed except I've broken a lot of bricks off the back end. But it's, yeah,